So Yamaha India has finally decided not to just answer the call of the do, but call of the people as well, as they have finally decided to bring their big motorcycles to India, including the R7 and the MT-07. Now, the exact timeline of their arrival to our shores is yet to be announced, but there's one thing that we know for sure, and that is that these motorcycles are indeed coming to India. This is Anand Pandey, you're watching BBC TopGear Mag India, and here's everything that you need to know about the R7 and the MT-07. Now, in terms of overall design philosophy of the R7 and the overall looks of it, it will instantly remind you of the R15 V4 that we got in India 2 years back. But here's the thing, and I need to put it out there, that the R15 V4 is based on the R7 in terms of overall looks and not the other way around, because it was the R7 that heralded a new design philosophy for Yamaha motorcycles when it was unveiled almost 3 years back in international market. Now, the overall design philosophy of the R7 includes a single LED projector headlamp up front that we have also seen on the R15 V4. It also gets an M-shaped air duct, and these air ducts are flanked by twin LED DRLs at either sides. So yeah, the overall front fascia of the motorcycle again will instantly remind you of the R15 V4, but the R7 looks a little bulkier as compared to the R15 V4, given the twin disc setup at the front and beefier bodywork as compared to the V4. Now for the international markets, the R7 can be had in just two colors, that is blue and black. And if you ask me, I'll definitely go with the blue one because it looks very striking in person. Now, coming over to the other design elements of the R7, we get a fully faired bodywork, which justifies the R moniker, which Yamaha carries forward with the R1. So yeah, design inspirations on the R1 are also present here, including these skins on the fuel tank that we have also seen on the M1, that is Yamaha's MotoGP machine. Now, in terms of riding ergonomics, the R7 is a proper super sport motorcycle. So it gets a very aggressive riding stance, and given that it is a proper Pakka sports bike, it gets a wide clip-on handlebar setup and rear set foot pegs. But I've also sat on the R6, which it sort of replaces for the international markets. So the overall riding ergonomics is slightly comfier as compared to the R6, which was an out-and-out track sports bike. One major difference between the R6 and the R7 is that the R7 is powered by a twin-cylinder engine, while the R6 was powered by an inline-four screamer. Now, other design elements of the R7 include these fairing mounted rear-view mirrors, wide clip-on handlebar like we have already mentioned, and the R7 gets a fully digital instrument cluster, which we cannot show you right now because there's no key, and that also means we cannot hear it as well, but I'm pretty sure that it sounds very unique because the engine that you see right here has a 270-degree crankshaft, so that gives it an uneven firing sequence. So that exhaust note should be definitely unique as compared to other twin-cylinder motorcycles that we have in the market, including the Ninja 650 for instance. Now, in terms of bodywork and paint finish, in a typical Yamaha and a typical Japanese fashion, there's nothing to be complaining about because the bodywork is rather sharp and it reeks of premium quality. And so these LED indicators are rather sleek and they add to the overall sharp design philosophy of the R7. As we pan our eyes towards the rear, another highlight that will instantly remind you of the R1 and the R series of Yamaha motorcycle is that shaft tail section, because that has become synonymous with R motorcycle from Yamaha's stable. Now, talking about the highlight of the show, and that is that engine. I have already mentioned that the R7 sort of replaces the R6, but not in an exact manner, because the R6 was a true blue track scorcher, which was known to decimate lap times around the racetrack, but the R7 is more sort of a compromise between the aggressiveness and the power that you need for the racetrack and accessibility that you need for street riding. So that engine, that is a 689cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine, that is CP2 motor as Yamaha likes to call it, and it gets a rather unique 270-degree crankshaft that I've already mentioned. Now, in terms of performance figures, this engine puts down 72.4 bhp at 8,750 rpm and 67 Nm of torque at 6,500 rpm. Now, if you look at the RPM limit of these performance figures and when they arrive in the power band, it will instantly tell you that this is not an out-and-out streamer like the R6, which used to rev all the way to 15,000 RPM, 60,000 RPM for that matter. Because this red lines at around, I guess, 9,000, 10,000 RPM. Not pretty sure about that. So much so for being an automotive journalist, right? But apart from that, this engine should be a perfect balance between the performance that you need for those scorching hot laps around the racetrack and the accessibility that you need for the street riding. And it puts it in the similar power band, in the similar performance figures as an Industry 50, not the Street Triple RS, which is definitely a more powerful, more modern, more sophisticated motorcycle as compared to the R7. Now in terms of gearbox, it gets a 6-speed gearbox, which comes with assist and slipper clutch as standard, while a quick shifter can also be available, but as an accessory. For now, for the international markets, we don't know how the R7 is going to come to India in what spec, but we expect the quick shifter to be available as an accessory. And now in terms of other cycle parts that we have on offer here, they are sort of premium bits, because up front we get to see KYB source upside down forks, which are fully adjustable units for the international spec model. And please, for God's sake, give us this exact same setup to us Indians as well. Please don't discriminate, please don't compromise on that regard, because that would definitely mean that we are losing out on some serious componentry. But yes, it definitely gets KYB suspension setup up front, USD forks at that, which are fully adjustable units, while the rear monoshock can be adjusted for preload as well as rebound. Now, the braking department of the R7 is handled by twin radially mounted 298mm disc up front and a single 245mm disc at the back. Now this is all about the R7, folks. Also, it misses out on Bluetooth connectivity, so you have to make peace with that fact, because as you can very well tell, the R7 is going to be all about the ride experience. But if you're in the market for a more hooliganistic approach, a more naked street fighter way, if you want to go down that route, there's another motorcycle for that. But if you're in the market for a middleweight sports bike that strikes a good balance between daily riding capabilities and racetrack performance as well, the R7 should be a good bet. We haven't ridden it yet, but on paper, in person, it definitely looks a lot promising. Now let's jump on to a more hooliganistic approach of the R7, the MT-07. So while the R7 is a track-focused middleweight sports bike, this right here, it is a different animal altogether. I mean, just look at that front fascia of the MT-07. The R7, well, that is a gorgeous looking sports bike. But this looks like it was stopped straight from another planet altogether. Now this extraterrestrial fascia sparked a lot of debates online internationally when it was first unveiled, and I'll admit it is not to everyone's taste, and the looks, pure looks, they will definitely polarize opinions out there. But there's one thing for sure, when it gets out on the streets, there is going to be nothing like it on our Indian roads, because this looks spectacular in person, especially in this particular shade with those charm wheels and that particular face. I mean, just look at it. So now talking about the differences between the R7 and the MT-07, there aren't any mechanical differences per se, but the MT-07, it makes through with telescopic focus up front. Now the R7, it gets fully adjustable USB ports sourced from KYB, so there's nothing, any sort of adjustment for the telescopic cope when it comes to the MT-07. Now, another major difference apart from the overall design philosophy, because that is the major difference here, is the riding style or how you sit on the motorcycle. Because the R7 now that has a very committed riding stance, so you sit like you sit on a proper sports bike. But this right here, the MT-07, it is a true blue naked street fighter with a very wide handlebar to provide you good leverage when you're maneuvering through tight corners or through tight spaces in your urban runabouts. And the foot pegs, they aren't that rear side either. They are much more comfortable, as we found out, as compared to the R7. So the MT-07, it is definitely going to ignite the hooligan in you, because the fuel tank, it is funky. Now while the R7 is going to inspire the racer in you, the MT-07 on the other hand, it is definitely going to spark that hooligan inside of you because of the wide handlebar, the way you sit on the motorcycle, and the way the MT series motorcycles go from Yamaha. They are proper wheelie machines. Look at the MT-09 for instance, and I believe the MT-07 is going to follow in on the same footsteps. So apart from the riding stance, telescopic fork front instead of USD forks, everything else remains the same on the MT-07. So it makes do with the same diamond tight frame, and it gets the same braking components and basically the same engine too. So this is all folks. This is the MT-07. You have already seen the R7, and we really cannot wait to see it out on the streets and to ride them as well, because that is what it is going to be all about. This is all folks. This is Anand Pandey from BBC Top Gear Mag India signing off. And do let us know in the comment section below that which motorcycle out of these two would you prefer, the R7 or the MT-07. And let us know if you have any questions regarding these motorcycles, and I'll make sure that I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'll see you around.